Welcome to EIPIP Meeting 85. We have agenda issue number 248 at EIPIP GitHub repository. For discussion, we have some EIPs which are already in final status and there are respective PRs to make some changes in that. We'll be discussing the issue of EIP and ERC GitHub repository that we have been discussing for past few meetings. And I can provide updates on EIPS Insight and maybe followed by EIP Editing Office Hour. So starting with the first item listed on the agenda, changes to final proposal. The first PR here is 7295. This seems to be a small change, but it's a keyword in the spec. I suppose the user is trying to remove the word memory here, wondering what editors think. Can we merge it or do we have to say no?
If it was valid solidity when it was written, then we should probably keep it. And if it's invalid solidity, then it's fine to change it.
I am not sure if we have anyone from Solidity to confirm that.
Yeah, I'm checking right now.
Perfect. Could we move on to the next item? I just wanted to bring it to the attention.
Yep.
Perfect. So the next one is a PR number 7261. It is a change proposed to EIP 6059. This also seems to be a small change. The author here is willing to add a statement, a sentence, which is when this proposal may not be good, and it's just a statement to let implementers know about it. No spec changes here. Again, the PR number is 7261.
I'll have to think about this one, but I'll keep it open.
Perfect. Okay, before we move on, I see we are joined by more editors here. So just to let people know that we have already taken up two PRs, 7295 and 7261. Those are proposed changes to final EIPs. If you guys have any thought, comments or objection on that PR, please add as a comment so we can close it, and we can also inform the author, and if it seems generally good and not a big change, we can perhaps merge that. Moving on to the last proposal here, the PR number is 7183. It is a change to EIP 2612. It seems a bit confusing because I'm not sure if the proposer is just trying to adjust the space or too much changes into it. So it would be really nice to have editors take a look at it and maybe respond.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next item, which is discussion continued from the past meeting. We have EIP ERC GitHub repositories split that we were discussing. So for a quick recap, Lightline opened a PR 7206 to split the GitHub repository. In the last meeting, we were evaluating the effect of split on ERC community. Victor, an ERC editor, wanted to have this proposal shared with ERC community via all ERC dev meeting and respond back in today's meeting. And in the meanwhile, we were to assess the functioning of existing and the process for the new repo. Juan pulled up the task list for ERC EIP split. It's in a HackMD, which is also added to the agenda. And he also mentioned that he is willing to volunteer on the editorial board post split. I don't see William. I'm sorry, I don't see Victor on the call today, but he has already updated on the Discord that he had a meeting of all ERC dev, and it seems like ERC developers or authors are not strongly opposing to this split. They are generally okay with whatever the process is. They just want a clear communication so it can be followed. Yeah, with this, perhaps we can start sharing updates and add comments. And I suppose it would be a good idea to take a look at the HackMD and discuss next steps to, getting volunteers for specific actions. I don't know, Juan, if you would like to maybe talk about the document and share the next steps. Yeah. And yeah, perhaps update all of us.
I uh, I don't have very strong opinions about the process. I was trying to just sort of, as the outsider, play secretary and just write down ideas I saw in different threads in different places across the Discord, Magicians, and the PR threads. And I don't necessarily, I'm unqualified to own it or to mediate if people disagree with any of the items. I was just trying to throw it together to have, a draft to work from. If anyone has strong opinions, the HackMD hopefully is not access controlled, and anyone should be able to change it.
Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot for making that HackMD. It was, yeah, pretty useful. There's like a lot of stuff that was kind of like outlined in different places, but yeah, putting it all together here so that we can see, that was an awesome thing.
Thanks. But maybe Pooja, was the request that I walk through it line by line, or item by item, or just overview it?
I was wondering, what would be our next step? It seems like we do not have a strong opposition to go ahead with the split. So, what would be the right next step to begin this process? I understand from Sam's
Wait a minute.
comment.
I've expressed strong opposition, blocking opposition over and over, and have not changed.
Yeah, but we decided last call that we're just going to go ahead and do it regardless.
So, Han, who's
I
we?
resign.
That's
This is blocking. I will resign.
You made that clear last call.
Okay. If the other editors are willing for me to resign over this issue, I will resign.
Okay, I do have Greg's proposal added as next item. I am fine going over that because if I remember correctly, Greg mentioned that if we take a look into his PR, that perhaps will help him, get motivated to, think about it, and it will solve some of the issues. Do you think that would be a good approach to first discuss that, and we can come back on this HackMD after that issue?
I've made clear that my opposition is not to splitting per se. My opposition is for splitting without a plan for how that split is actually going to help the problems that we have.
We've outlined how it's going to help, but you don't like what we've said that it is going to improve the situation.
I believe it will cause more harm, but I don't want to have that.
Yeah, but then
again,
but we have given reasons that it's going to improve the situation.
I understand.
Well, you just said that we haven't. We said that we're going into this without a plan, and we do have some specific things we think it's going to improve. And whether or not you think that those are useful, that's like a separate discussion. But like we do have some plan.
I'm not finding it adequate. That's why I've made the PR to indicate the direction of a plan that makes sense to me. We can discuss this or not.
Okay, I think that is the next item on the agenda. So if you would like, we can perhaps discuss the PR that you have suggested, and then we can come back on the HackMD.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Oh,
All right.
sorry.
No worries. All right. So let me bring up
Is
that.
sorry, quick question, point of order. Is screen sharing distracting, or is this not really the standard way to do this? I just sort of default to screen sharing anytime I talk on any kind of meeting.
I think we're
No, it's
too lazy
fine.
to screen share usually.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but that should be fine.
The comment on the commit pretty much summarizes, I think. Um, of course, if you have particular things to go through, that's fine too. But for general discussion, the comment is, I think, still a good summary.
Yeah, I think maybe since it's your PR and there's change requests throughout and subtopics, you could guide us to what you'd want to discuss with the group to decide on change requests and update.
See, Victor wasn't able to make it today. The pain I've seen and experienced as an author is, in my opinion, we're in general way too picky, but especially we're way too picky way too early. It's a pain just getting a draft into the system, but until you have a draft in, it can be difficult to get discussion threads going, to have a number to refer to so people know what the proposal is. So I think it should be easier to get a draft in the first place. We're not going to run out of numbers. Microsoft's not going to run out of hard drive space. So the main concept here is just to make it easier to get a draft in and tighten the standards as we move through the process. And so I've made specific PRs, but I'm not wedded to the specific PRs. I simply am presenting the concept of tightening as we go, and doing it at the transition points so people can get into the process and work on their proposal without a constant battle of you're doing fine, you make a change, and EIPW says, nope, not anymore. And suddenly a short session of work becomes a long session of work. Or you discover that, oh, you can no longer use that link. Your whole proposal is stuck. Just these are pain points. It's just a painful process for people. On link policy, I really think I think we're too tight on it. But certainly at the draft phase, if someone needs to use a link or wants to in a draft, okay, we've set it up that we'll need to go through a process of approving that, but please let it into the draft so that the draft makes sense while we go through that process. And I've suggested actually tightening up links as much as possible, having a full citation into the literature, so that if a link goes 404, you're not just scratching your head. You have an author, you have a title, hopefully you have a journal, a publication date, so you can probably find another copy online. If necessary, you can go to a library, get a copy on interlibrary loan. You can send an email to the author. Lots of ways to get a copy if a link goes 404. So having a link is nice, but it's actually less important than a proper citation.
Or a DOI. I love the DOI idea because DOIs or even IPFS CIDs sort of create a location independent fallback.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I don't think there's going to be much pushback on any of those details. I think the like the things to resolve to merge this quickly would be the technical assistant idea. There seemed to be a little contentious, and
Yeah.
I don't know the history there. If I definitely know the analogy to IETF, and I guess if you it probably isn't the right place to talk about like money or or formal recognition. But if it is a concept that already exists, if there is already a way to call someone an expert enough to advise, is where's the disagreement, I think.
Part of the problem is we've got too many low quality drafts. That is a problem. I don't think we can bot our way out of that problem.
Yeah.
And we haven't gotten, like the IETF, a solid working group system. And I suspect it's just too hard for us to do that, because what comes in as ERCs just covers a huge range of stuff, and keeping a group organized hasn't happened. And then I ask, well, what do other publishers do? And the answer is peer review. Something comes in for publication, and 2 or 3 experts review it before it goes in. And we've had some talk on this, that if you can't find 2 people to help you with this draft, then is it really worth standardizing? If nobody cares to read it but you, what's the point? And if we can establish this as a practice, and often publishers push back on the author to say, hey, find some reviewers. We're not experts here. We're just editors. Find us some reviewers to work with you on this, so that we have some reason to think it's technically sound. That's a barrier that I'm happy to put up before a draft goes in, a technical barrier.
The chat's actually going wild right now with ideas about that.
Oh, I don't have my chat up.
Oh, sorry.
22.
No worries. So I think people are I think people are thinking about being permissive of PRs, but postponing the numbering, perhaps, and that, I don't know if that balances the pain of proposers against the pain of editors well enough. But I do think, like, just to give a comparative perspective, CASA, which is a pretty different animal, but like Diff 2 sort of has an informal 2 competitors rule. Like it's I've been trying to make it more formal at DIF, that a new work item proposal that just comes from people that are already collaborating on a product, or a thing they're building where they're already collaborating, like that isn't really a place for standards. I think that to publish it as a document, you could require BYO technical assistant, or you could require form something that looks like the thinnest possible precursor to a working group. Like those might be ways to, particularly if combined with this idea of a pre-numbering, or accept the PR but don't give it a number till it has someone to review it.
That's what draft PRs are for.
Maybe other people should speak. I'm not sure I understand the unnumbered proposal well enough. Sam?
Oh, it's just if we give draft EIPs a number and URL that changes when they get promoted to review, whether that's, a different number or using the title or whatever, I think that would give enough difference between a draft and a real EIP that I'd be okay with like a lower standard for those EIPs.
I guess I'm suggesting an initial stage, which is just a draft PR. They can hang out there forever and never be merged, and they don't need a number. And that's the stage at which you want some peer review before it's numbered and becomes a draft. And then it has.
Wait, you want the peer review before? Because
yes.
right now we have drafts have very like you don't even have to have a finished EIP, right? Like you can leave to dos and all sorts of stuff in there.
But,
and that's where we want peer review, not after it's complete.
I think so. So we're just getting flooded with drafts that are too low quality to bother looking at, or just they're too far out of anyone's technical expertise to help with. So it's simply not uncommon for technical journals to do a phase of peer review before it gets very far at all. They don't put in the work of actually editing until some peer reviewers have said this is technically sound. And
I mean, we've tried for a pretty long time to have people engage with the EAPs as they move along in the process, and they just don't.
I understand it has to be sort of a rule. It's just like, no.
I mean, it is a rule. It's in EIP 1. It says before you create your draft, you should ask the community and make sure that this makes sense.
I'm saying a rule. The editors will not merge a draft until some peer reviewers have actually looked at it. We'll need to establish a little bit of process there, so it's clear this is a process. This isn't go out and find something. It's like, no, we want actual work on the draft PR until the reviewers are happy with it.
So I think this is a good spot to jump into my meta complaint. This doesn't address the issue that the core EIPs and the ERCs are two increasingly divergent communities with two increasingly divergent process needs. Getting a person with the technical knowledge to review a core EIP proposal is going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. And getting someone to review a random ERC for random token protocol that may or may not be viable is going to be increasingly difficult. And the standards that need to be put to a core EIP versus some ERC standard that just needs to some extent, have well-formed solidity are increasingly divergent and have very different needs. This addresses the lowest common denominator needs, but that's the problem, is we're trying to put two divergent processes together that really need to diverge.
Well, it doesn't seem complicated with GitHub. You put in a draft PR. It doesn't merge until the editors approve it. So it's easy for the editors to say, we're not going to merge it until I guess at least one technical expert helps us review it. And that can be at either that can be a standard process or at our discretion. Often an editor has the skill to look at it and do that job. Often an editor doesn't have the skill. And that seems
But we don't need this type of a process to move stuff into core. Core will ignore the EIP process and set up their own standards rather than go through these. The needs are divergent, very divergent. This is not something that core protocol changes go through, except as a final box checking step, just to satisfy some people. We're increasingly abandoning the EIP process because it's not serving the needs of the core protocol.
I understand.
which is why we need to split it. If you understand it, why don't you support splitting it?
Again, I'm sorry for jumping in, but I am
Can we
having.
let Greg respond?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Because I do want to hear. Sorry, I just want to hear
I don't
why he
want
is
to,
against this.
I've had this discussion so many times for so many years. And I'm not alone in my opinion. It's more like the people who agree with me have just gone away. But I'm not inalterably proposed. What's laid out doesn't look so bad. I have strong fears that the divergence will actually hurt us. So we're better off preventing the divergence,
How is
because
it going to hurt us?
it'll simply spread resources out and cause Ethereum more and more to become a fragmented community more than
What resources will be spread out? Because we already review all of the EIPs and ERCs, and that's not really going to change when we split them.
Well, see, now we're getting into the details that I don't want to get into, because
But you're not really
I think the
giving
opposite's
actual
gonna happen.
reasons against.
I know I'm not
You're
trying
giving
to
vague. You're giving
I'm not-
vague
I don't.
generalizations.
Yes, because I don't want to get into the details. We've done that. I'm trying to discuss my
I'm
own proposal, not that
But
one.
I'm saying that your arguments against splitting, like, they don't have a lot of basis in like reason. It's, so far I've heard just generalizations about, oh, it's going to fragment the process, it's going to make it harder, etc. But there's not like specific things that you're stating like this is a bad thing. Whereas we've given specific things about the split that will benefit the core dev community, and generally people from the core dev community and the ERC community are not opposed to this.
Yes, I'm waving my hand in the general direction of more detailed conversations in the past, but I mostly want to discuss my own EIP here. Yeah, I think I've said.
So you
I'm
mentioned
okay.
that you were.
I'm
Can
okay
I
with.
respond to one of the points you made, Greg?
Yes, please do. Sorry.
You said that you were not the only person in favor of this, but everyone that you had that did support with you has since left. This is the symptom of failure.
Sorry,
because
I
they're
am
trying to
still
sort
an
of jump
EIP
out of the
editor,
case.
and I still am not in support of this change.
People are leaving because they can't get what they need out of it.
No,
That's the problem.
I mean, people have left the discussion. The discussion just stalls. Every time we have this discussion, we decide not to split the repo. We do not come to consensus on splitting the repo. We've never had a consensus.
And what we're on the precipice of is people abandoning the EIP process. It's already happening in the core protocol. We have execution specs. We have execution spec tests. Nothing networking has gone through in a long time. Slowly but surely, it's peeling off. And this is bad. I mean, you're going to wind up as just an ERC repo anyway if we don't acknowledge this.
I understand. I want to fix it. I have an EIP which will not totally fix these things, but I think will reduce the pain for everybody. And I think it's a good idea if we can reduce the pain for everybody.
It doesn't reduce the pain enough. People are still leaving. We've been through this. We've been going through this for years, and people are still abandoning it.
I'm suggesting we do the parts of this that we can come to consensus on and will reduce pain. Nothing will reduce all of the pain.
This is death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Could be.
And you're the one with dream of paper.
No, I mean, if I walk away, I walk away. That's okay. I'm a very busy old man. And that's not a hostile act on my part. It would just be, you people need to do what you need to do. And if I'm not comfortable with doing it that way, it's okay for me to say, okay, do what you need to do. It may well work out just fine.
Anyway, I think it's time to do what we need to do. We've had the EIPIP process for 3 years now.
Saying you need to change the way you organize your repos so your repos are more useful to us. And I do look and say a fair amount of your process.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Siri.
Yes.
Some of it looks like the core devs are trying to use the EIP process for things that have nothing to do with the editorial process. The status of something as an edited document and the status of a proposal moving through to get into the protocol have different stages. The core devs can pull something to CFI at any stage in the editorial process. They're not bound by that process.
Splitting the repos is not really related to this.
To some, yeah, I'm trying to say this. I'm sorry, I'm not being really clear here. There's too much on the table. And we don't have core devs here to discuss this with.
What do you mean? You have
I'm a core dev.
Okay.
You have Dano here. Dano is requesting that on behalf of the other core devs that we've talked to on all core devs who were in support of this. I mean, we had Marius 2 weeks ago who said they wanted this.
I heard Tim was complaining that, well, we've got stuff spread across HackMDs and this and that. I'm scratching my head.
Tim wants to split the repos.
I understand, but I'm just going, why is it the editor's problem that you can't keep track of the status of your work?
Because we want to change the process, and it takes like a year to get a process change through. And that's just, it doesn't align with what we need with our workflow, which is why we're putting in HackMDs, why we're putting in separate repos, why we're basically abandoning the process because it's not suiting our needs.
Why are the core devs trying to use the EIP process to track their development process?
It's the Ethereum improvement protocol. It's where we can get consensus on the changes that we're working on for Ethereum, not for the application layer. I mean, it's like the W3C is capturing the IETF is what's going on.
No, this feels more like the IETF editorial organization has decided that there's way too many different kinds of proposals for the internet, and so they're going to break up the IETF into multiple organizations.
Like the W3C, like the WWG, like there's all sorts of things that are like the PIP. I mean, they split to reflect the needs of the communities when they diverge, which is what's happening.
Split. Those were new organizations that rose up for new needs, but this would
they abandoned the IETF. That's the table
stakes. The IETF editors did not divide themselves into multiple organizations just because the IETF covers a huge range of technology. So that's where I'm going, loosen our workflow so it's not in their way, and find out, well, how can you clean up your workflow? I get that the protocol level, they've been working directly with their Python specification, and that's where some process probably needs to change. That the EIP really isn't done until after they've done their work on the reference implementation. And I don't have a problem with that. We just need to work out how that works. And part of that, I think, is just making it easier to get a draft into the system and move it through. So there's always a document in the system that can be referred to and the author has control of.
Problem is we have two divergent layers trying to use the same system that is not serving either one of their needs very well at all.
Okay.
And you're concerned it's going to split it. I think it's going to strengthen it. People are going to see that they can get what they need out of each different group, and they're going to use it more.
You think?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and I don't, and we're going on hope here, not a plan.
We have a plan. You made us table it so we could discuss your plan that doesn't address the issues.
It addresses a few other issues that I think are easier to fix and would help a lot.
But we're focusing on the low-hanging fruit when we need to go to more substantive issues. We're distracting ourselves with avoiding the core issue that we're diverging as communities. A lot of these ERCs do not necessarily ever need to run on mainnet. They could run on all sorts of pick your random alt L1 or L2. The application layer has nothing to do with changes to the consensus layer, with changes to the networking between the two clients, between the two different layers. They're fundamentally different layers that only interact in very few places.
Okay, we're just editors. In the end, we just want to publish a high quality document. And I get that we don't want the process to be in the way of that. But I do think that people are trying to use the EIP process for things besides simply having a final document at the end to manage their own workflow. And I know that GitHub tends to pull things that way and cause problems that way. But still, I'm going, it's not our problem if you prefer to use HackMDs rather than use Ethereum PM.
It's not that
So
people
you're
prefer to do
consenting to the
this.
divergence. Go ahead, like client.
I'm just saying it's not that we prefer to use HackMDs, like people want to use the process. It just doesn't work with how they normally work.
I'm looking back to how it was working. I only sort of disappeared for a year and all of a sudden it was a different world. So I've never recovered from that. And I'm the last OG left. So I'm the last one going, this was our intention. And it was a pretty solid long-term intention. So that's a lot of what's going on here. And I have a lot invested in that.
But the community has moved on from what was intended, and maybe what is intended isn't what's working. I mean, I think you're articulating the core issue here.
Yes, and that's where, with no hostility, I will need to move on if I've decided the philosophy no longer corresponds to the philosophy we had, which is that we're publishers. All we're trying to do is to get a good final document at the end. And with the core devs, we always considered them to be a separate organization who could pull documents out of our process because their workflow was not ours. All we wanted was to do our best to get a final document ready to describe what actually went on to the mainnet.
I mean, that's still the goal. It's just the way that we're going about it is disenfranchising the people who are writing the documents and involved in the process of dealing with the documents. So it's like kind of ingenuous to say that that's the goal, to have the best final documents, when we don't listen to the feedback from the actual creators of these documents.
And I'm hearing two sorts of problems. One sort is just the difficulty of dealing with the editorial process. And this IP is trying to solve some of those problems. And low-hanging fruit is low-hanging fruit. If you just
but again, like at the very beginning of this debate, we came to a specific proposal that you made where you feel that there should be more peer review that happens before something goes to the draft. Dano said specifically, this would be easy to have with core devs at some stage in the process. It's very hard to have with ERCs because they're so fragmented. And so this is just like a clear place where we can't easily have some rule across both categories of EIPs and apply them in the same way.
The proposal is at the editor's discretion. The editors can go, this is reviewed enough, this is solid, or we can't tell if this is solid, we need help. And it is purposely a technical barrier that core proposals can meet much more easily. That's true.
So we're already saying that core has a different process than ERCs. Well, why are we keeping them in the same file cabinet?
No, in this case, I'm simply saying the core proposals are more likely to be reviewed and solid right away. And ERCs are more likely to be not solid or not useful.
So
Right,
if you had
right.
the same rule for both, core EIPs would get approved easier and ERCs wouldn't be, and that's okay.
Yes, it
That's
doesn't
not
have
okay. That's not serving the needs of the two divergent communities.
at the editor's discretion, and the authors can argue with the editors. We can either say we will move this to draft. It meets our
And what we're
standard.
seeing is the authors are abandoning the process rather than engaging in that fight.
That's not a fight for the core things. We don't say, technically, we're not going to put this in. We say we're not going to put this in because it doesn't meet our rules. It won't get through our bot. So we're not going to put it in until it does. That's an easy pain point to get rid of. It's clearing out low-hanging fruit that's not very controversial is worth doing. It eliminates some pain right away.
And we're going to see pretty quickly that the core issue is that these are two communities that have different needs from their
Sure.
editors.
I would be happy to see the core issue get quite clear in that way.
It is clear. You're just refusing to see it.
No, I'm disagreeing that it all needs to be fixed in the editorial process. What I think what needs to split is that the core devs need to own their workflow. And we need to simplify our process so that it doesn't interfere with workflows.
How is giving the core devs special privileges any different from splitting the repos?
I'm explicitly not giving anybody special privileges. Already, it's the case that the editors have to approve a draft before it goes into the repo. I'm simply saying at the editor's discretion, they can ask for outside technical review and tell the author that we are not competent to review this, or to the extent we are, we don't think this is up to snuff and you need help. So we'll work with you to try and find that help. And this is not a core dev versus ERC thing. We will get core proposals that have the same, you look at it and you just go, this doesn't make sense. If it does, somebody needs to help this guy.
But we're going to increasingly have editors apply different standards to different kinds of EIPs. And that is just reinforcing that there's two communities going on here at the same time.
I just said we will get core proposals that also need outside review. Fewer than ERCs, likely. If a core proposal does need such review, it will be much easier to get that review. I don't think it'll be a problem at all.
I would like to cite an example here for one of the latest CL side proposal that has been added to EIP repository as core, and the proposal number is 7044. And there is another proposal in progress, which is EIP 6110. For both proposals, what I noticed for them is their discussion to thread is completely empty. There was no discussion that is public, because discussion definitely happened. It happened on client dev meeting and perhaps in the client specific spec repos. So it is not easily accessible. Following the process of whatever has been established so far is also helpful for core EIP, is what I'm considering. It's just that we need to let people know about the process. One other common thing about these two specific proposals coming up from the CL side, I'm sorry, 6110 I guess is on EL, but 7044 is on CL, that they are not aware. The proposal, I think the spec has already been implemented because that is a part of DNAB upgrade, but the proposal still is in the draft status. It is not even in the review status, which would be an ideal status for that proposal. So what I felt like the proposer, the author, they have no issue moving the proposal from draft to review. It's just that they are not aware. If we let them know that this is the process and you want to follow, I'm still hoping that it will work out for those people. But going back to Greg's initial PR, I think, Greg, it would be a good idea to talk about 7230, the pain relief point that you are suggesting, and get an agreement on what we agree and if this can be merged. Because if, I'm assuming that if this can be merged, perhaps we can move on. So I see from the chat, Lightline is not in favor of the draft and numbering idea. Please correct me, Matt, if I am mistaken over there. But if this change is added, would you be open to discuss and perhaps pull in or like remove this part from the PR so we can go ahead and merge the PR where we are on that would be a good idea to discuss.
I'm happy to split this PR up because clearly some things are more controversial than others.
It's always a good idea to have a smaller PR so we can get clarity on situation. We can keep moving on. Like if this particular section, like draft numbers thing, can be moved out, what is the next point that we don't agree on? Like as an editors group, they are not comfortable moving this to EIP1. If they are, then that's a small step, but a step forward in improving the process. Any other point from Greg's PR that people would like to be removed or be a part of a different PR so we can go ahead and have this one merged?
We can take it up in the thread on the PR.
All right, that's even a good idea. We can definitely take it up in the thread. And Greg, not saying that it is going to happen just today, but again, considering both the possibility of splitting as well being one of the possibilities for repo, it would be a good idea to follow the proposed next steps to understand if at all we go ahead with the splitting, we are in a good position, we are in a comfortable position and nothing is breaking up. So if it is fine, we can perhaps in next 10 minutes quickly go through the HackMD that is being proposed here. It will give an assurance to community, I suppose, that if the split is happening, we are not abandoned, we are in a good hands. All right. I think just to make good use of the time, let's quickly go over the points. We will continue discussing Greg's PR in the thread and see if it can be split and PR number 7230 can be merged. At least it will give some relief to the present process and editors. And then we will separately discuss the PR which is split or coming up as new. And for this time, for people who are in favor of having this split, but they are wondering if the split will be useful or helpful, let's go ahead with the HackMD with proposed process. I think collecting thoughts from Matt and other people who are in support of this split would be a good idea, and it will be helpful for people like Juan and us to coordinate and have things in place before the split. Juan, if you would like to maybe pull up the document and we can discuss specific points there.
Did he leave? Shoot.
Oh yeah, looks like he has been disconnected. But okay, fine. The HackMD is with everybody. I have also added here in the agenda. I'm gonna reshare it. Okay, someone did pull up. Thank you. Any specific point that people think is worth discussing in this group, we can perhaps talk about it. Any objectionable point would be priority because that's what we would like to resolve first.
I mean, I guess first thing is, what is the latest on this numbering bot? Is that ever going to happen?
I'm not sure. Panda is not on the call. I suppose he is working on the numbering bot, but unless the bot...
I don't think he is probably working on the numbering bot.
He did stop. Okay.
I mean, it's
even an odd. One series uses the odd, the other series uses the even. They don't have
Problem
to.
is that it's only works post split, and so
Yeah.
it's not really a good thing to enshrine, because then new people to the community will think that, oh, odd numbered EIPs or ERCs are, one or the other category, and then you go back and you look at 1559 and you're like, that should be an ERC because it's odd, and it's not. So I'm pretty against even and odd.
It's a technicality.
Yeah,
Do you
we're going through
have,
the technicalities.
do we have any alternate proposal for this EIP number?
I mean, I have proposed on many occasions, even outside of the conversation of the split, that we should just have a shared document, some sort of HackMD, some sort of GitHub or Google Sheet, whatever, some spreadsheet that we can all use, and just update the latest number that's used in the PR that it's assigned to, and just manually assign them like that. Like, we have so many problems with numbering, like, we should just do that instead of using the PR numbers. That's something that we can do right now.
So this question will be equally valid for core EIPs as well. What are we planning to do there? Are we planning to continue with the PR number? And I remember Danny proposed
This
once
is for
that we
all of
can go
them.
sequential. Okay.
Well, I'm still proposing that it's like roughly sequentially. The only thing is that we just have a spreadsheet that we look at to see what the last assigned number is, whether it's EIP, ERC. It doesn't even matter about the split. We can do this now.
Okay, I think that is a good point, and perhaps we would like to get an agreement of all EIP editors because they are responsible for allocating the EIP number, and we have been joined by a new editor, kind of. No, I don't know, we can call him editor, but definitely helping with the EIP number allocation, and it would be a work in which all the EIP editor and that user would work together to allocate. So I am open to keep this as a discussion point for next meeting. How do we want to go ahead with the EIP numbering? Maybe we can.
I mean, can we just do it? Like, is anybody against doing this?
It's easy enough, and if we find a way to automate it, it's easy enough to switch to the automation.
Cool.
Great.
So,
Well, I mean, theoretically, Panda should have automation done at some point, but that was, 1.5, 2 months ago, and we don't have it yet. So
I think they need to be sequential, and they need to never be the same.
Yeah, I agree. Agreed.
And if the numbers diverge too much, that gets confusing as far as time. People
so it looks
expect
like we are generally in agreement with the allocation of EIP number using one common file that will be shared among the EIP editors as well as a user who are supporting us with the EIP number allocation.
Sounds good. I'll make a Google Sheet and share it with people.
And the idea is that, like, when we merge the draft PR, we rename the file.
I think we can just assign the EIP number and have the author do it.
Okay, works for me. So this is just to get in the routine of doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we want to have it like for a particular number in mind, because it would be easier to communicate it to community that from this number onwards, whatever number allocation you see is based on this process? I think we are at
say
7,000.
something, but
Yeah, we are at 7,000 something, right? So let's check on the latest number, and whatever is closest to 100 of that, perhaps that would be a good idea to start from there. Even if it is not an allocated number, we can start that as the first number.
sounds good.
Okay. So at least
Okay, let's go ahead and do that. And then the other, I guess the other main question is just like, what is going to be the situation with the bots? Has any progress been made at all on having the configurability to have them manage multiple repositories?
So as long as you keep the same config for EIPW, it won't matter. And to start, I think that would be the idea. And
Yeah.
I've added configurability to the command line tool. I just haven't added it to the GitHub action yet, so that'll probably happen shortly.
Okay.
I have no idea about ReviewBot. I think Panda said that it would work fine as long as it has secrets. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Which I assume by forking it will be there, right?
we won't be able to fork because
Oh,
then we
we
won't
won't?
have we won't have issues or like pull requests and code search won't work. So we have to create a new repo and push the commits to it.
Okay, in
Yeah.
that case, we need a plan to have the secret shared over there as well.
I mean, we would just have new secrets for that
Okay,
repository.
that
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can transfer issues. Maybe I misheard, but were you saying that you
It's not that you
have
Saying for the fork.
Yeah, if you fork a repository on GitHub, the fork has like limitations, like it can't have a wiki, code search doesn't work. There's a few like minor things. So we'd want a clean copy.
Got it. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest outstanding things. Let me look and see if there was anything on the PR.
Okay. So definitely we'll communicate this to Panda, and whenever we are ready, we are just trying to make sure that our checklists are covered. So whenever we are ready, we can do that if at all needed. Greg, I'm still there if at all needed. I think it's a good discussion for today, considering we still have some pros cons going on, and I'm hoping that if some of the concerns of Greg's are already answered and the PR is merged, perhaps we can have him on board as well, and we will get to understand better. We have just 2 minutes left on the call, and yeah, anything specific? Very well. I have also shared the hackmd file, which is for EIPS Insight, and I've tried to add this image for how many proposals we get every month and how many gets merged as final. Definitely we agree that most of the proposals which are not merged as final are from ERC side, because the number of ERC proposals are higher. But at the same time, this is also true that proposals which are being merged on month-to-month basis are mostly from ERC side as well. So ERC people are also trying to follow whatever they have been advised to and get their proposal merged and ERC. Well, that's a discussion for the next meeting. Going through the EIPS Insight, we have received 4 final EIPs for the month of July as on July 12th, and all 4 belong to ERC category. There is one proposal in last call, and I suppose its deadline has passed, so we will have to reach out to the author to ask him to make a proposal to make it to the final status. With 3 new drafts, the EIP repository seems to have a lot of open pull requests which would need some addressing, but EIP editing office hour has been doing great. Thank you, Sam, for taking out time and responding to particular questions of new authors who are trying to follow the process. We do have added the EIP editing office hour meeting recording from yesterday. You can find that in agenda, and agenda for the next meeting is also linked there. So if people have any question with respect to any specific pull request, please be sure to add it over there. We do not take a general review in EIP meeting. Only final proposals can have a discussion in EIP meeting. Well, that's all for today. Anyone has any final comment? If not, then I think we are good for today, and hope to see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone. We did great. We made some progress. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey guys, bye bye.